Hello, everybody, and welcome to Cosmic Conversations with the Galactic/Ex-Wish Alliance. Sheila Seppi is away today, so I'm hosting for her, and we have a beautiful guest who's in Florida at the moment, who's been experiencing some of the storms that have just hit Florida. Angela Anderson, who'll be coming on soon. I'll get her on screen in a minute. I just wanted to tell you all about the Galactic Alliance. And the former Wish Alliance. If you go to wishalliance.org or galacticalliance.org, you'll find the Cosmic Conversations there, which happen every Thursday, 6 p.m. Mountain Time. I'm in Sydney, Australia, so it's midday here in Sydney, Australia. On a Friday, I'm a day ahead of you all in the States. Yes, lunchtime on a Friday. It's the 11th of the 11th. We call it Remembrance Day down under, but 1111 Gateway Portal in my part of the world. In your part of the world, I know it's still only the 10th, so your 11th is tomorrow. But for me, it's the 11th, and I feel so blessed to be here with you all today. And I wanted to tell you all about the CAN, Conscious Awakening Network. This will go up on the Conscious Awakening Network, which Sheila has been working so hard to get together. It's a bit of a dream come true for her and myself, actually, bringing people who have content from all over the country, well, from all over the world, really, bringing it all together on one network. So my show, Accentuate the Positive, Awakening and Expanding Consciousness, is on there. And obviously the Cosmic Conversations and the Conscious Awakening Network Conversations are on there from the Galactic Alliance, and Portal to Ascension shows are on there. And look, there's a whole slew of shows on there. You can download the app on Android or iPhone. It's also on Roku streaming networks, and Apple Fire, is it Apple Fire? Amazon Fire Sticks, and Apple, I think it's on Apple. So it's bringing conscious conversations into a streaming platform for people who are out there watching their streaming platforms to find these conversations, these cosmic conversations. So it's kind of exciting. Has anyone downloaded the app that's with us today? Have you been playing with the app? Anybody?
I have.
You have, yeah, Bridget. And your shows are on there too. You're on there, Bridget Renee Holiday from Awaken Ascending.
I am.
You are.
Yes, I am. A handful of them are on there so far. More to come.
More to come. I know, it's very exciting. So if you want to sign up for these Zoom meetings, we've got a whole slew of people on Zoom. They happen twice a week. Go to the Galactic Alliance and sign up. I'm going to spruik my show as well. If you want to watch a content, which I'm now on the CAN network, the Conscious Awakening Network, handful, like Bridget, handful of shows are there, but I'm also on YouTube, Rumble, BitChute, and Odyssey, as well as about 40 podcast streaming platforms. I actually don't even know how many audio podcast platforms I'm on, because what happens is people just take your RSS feed and then they just pop it. They start these podcasting audio platforms and they just pop your show on there. And every now and then I'll get an email saying, claim your show. So I have to say that my audio audience has just exponentially gone up this year. So there are lots of people starting these audio platforms and putting my show on there. But yes, so, it's on all the regulars like Apple and iTunes, or, whatever iTunes calls itself these days, and Spotify and iHeartRadio and all those sorts of places. And also Sheila is putting the Conscious Awakening Network on those audio platforms as well. So the content that's going up on the Conscious Awakening Network, you can also find on audio streaming platforms. Yes, getting the word out there. Woohoo. So I also run a group once or twice a month, and called the Inner Sanctum. So the Inner Sanctum is for people that know that they're here to make a difference. They're star seeds, they're light workers, they're light weavers, a bit like this group. And we come together. I used to teach every week, but now I've put my teachings into courses. So the groups are just a bit like this. We're just for people that come together and share knowledge and meet other people, which happens on a Sunday morning here in Australia. It's a Saturday night. And if you're interested in hearing more about that, just go to my website, karenswain.com/inner sanctum, and you can sign up for free. It's free or by donation. So I'm going to bring on Angela. You ready to Come on, honey one. And introduce you. Here we go. Add spotlight. Hello, Angela. Great to see
Hi
you.
there. Hi there. I'm so
What,
excited to be present tonight.
so what time is it over there? Is it 7 p.m.?
It's 8:08 on the
It's
dot.
8, and the storms have calmed down because you're in Florida.
Yes. Yeah, we had the bulk of everything this morning, at least where I'm located. I'm located on the west coast of Florida. So I didn't get the initial impact. I got the subdued impact, but it was still pretty windy here. So
I was speaking to Bridget about this before, who's also in Florida. And what did you say, Bridget? I don't do the storms. I just told my mob, I told my star family, not doing the storms. I'm going to live in Florida, but I'm not going to do the storms, right, Bridget?
that's
I opted
my
out.
perspective as well. That's my perspective as well. Apparently, I do the same thing too because I slept through most of it. Yeah.
I know Florida's had a hard season. Yeah, it's had a hard season with Hurricane Ian, and yeah, I've been watching the devastation. It's amazing. But let me tell you a little bit about Angela from her bio. So Angela, what have I got written here? Beacon of hope, love and light, channel of higher consciousness, conduit of divine oneness. Oneness speaks, channeling messages from Christ consciousness. Prior to 2022, and I met Angela through my group, the Inner Sanctum. Angela spent 20 years in the corporate world, employed as a software engineer for 4 different Fortune 500 companies. With a passion for health and well-being, Angela also spent several years working as a certificate personal trainer. She serves as a Kundalini Activator, Shaman, and channel of the energy of oneness through her company, Oneness Works, LLC. What does LLC stand for, huh?
A limited liability company, just a small company.
She's
Yeah.
getting organized. Through which she
Yeah.
also provides private sessions, personal and private sessions, and group sessions. Angela is one of the co-hosts of the YouTube show Third Eye Salon with a slew of co-hosts, actually. It's a great show, exploring, like my show, exploring all sorts of consciousness and all sorts of things. It's a great show. And a content creator for 13's Moons magazine, an online media content stream designed to give intuitive creators an avenue to share their medicine while giving a voice to all that is of the divine feminine. Now that sounds exciting. I'd love to hear more about that. That's something new I haven't heard you doing before.
Yeah, it's something new, something just getting off the ground, and they've purpose to bring creatives together to create basically a what do I want to call it? Just a collection of artists who share in different ways, whether it's through channeling or through poetry, spoken word, or just anything written, anything really.
Wow.
It's just an avenue for expression. Yes.
Amazing. So Angela also spends her free time with one of many hobbies, including reading, wellness, enjoying nature, creating beautiful works of art, and building her own custom motorcycles. Many times during our sessions in the Inner Sanctum, she'd be in the garage or the workshop building a motorcycle and listening and tuning in, building a motorcycle. I loved it. She plays the role of loving wife to her husband and mother to her 2 beautiful children, and a cat, all of whom serve as the perfect mirror in her experience, enabling, instant enjoyment along with a few challenges. Thank you, welcome. And have you got a website up? Linktree, Energy of Oneness on Linktree.
Yeah, that's a link. That's a link to all of my links. Everything associated with me, you can get there through Linktree.
So I know your story because I've been living through it, but for those people that are online that don't know it, let's tell people how this all unfolded for you.
Okay. It's a bit of a long story, but I'll try to condense it just a little bit. And it's really applicable to my work at this point. I think I had to live what I was here to do. And my life is an expression of that. And so I'll say, growing up, I've always known there was more to life than meets physical eyes. I've always known that. I've always had the ability to see to a certain degree. And growing up, like many people, I didn't have that support system in place that was willing to support my abilities. And so I decided when I was younger to turn it off for the most part, because I didn't get that validation from my mom, and I never really talked to my dad about it, because I guess I just didn't feel that he could take it. But because I never got that validation, I decided to turn it off and still experience small things, little inklings. It's like I would get these, have these experiences to let me know something was still there throughout life. So at 12, high school, adolescence, all of that. So let's fast forward to 2 years ago, where it was like 2020. And the start of 2020, December of 2019, to be exact, was when I started feeling that push. Like I knew there was something more. I felt like I was getting pushed to something more. And the catalyst for me during that time was my marriage. Relationships provide a perfect mirror for you if you are willing to see it. And it takes it takes releasing a whole lot of pride and attachment to your ego in order to allow yourself to see and receive it. And so when that catalyst came, my husband was the source of that for me, the mirror for me. And dealing with that, I found myself blaming him or looking at myself as the victim, and he was the culprit for me. And as I was having a moment, because our marriage has really been rather peaceful, like through all of our marriage. We've been married almost 20 years now, and we've never had real arguments. All of our discussions are more, I call them life reviews, because that's what they feel like. We sit down and we have a legitimate conversation about my perspective, his perspective, and we kind of go back and forth to move forward. We've never had an argument, a scream out battle argument, and I've never been angry at him to the degree that I was in 2019, December of 2019. And as I was angry, I could feel this shift happening as I was speaking to him. And it was almost like I began to have two conversations at once. I'm having a conversation with him in the physical, but I'm also having a conversation with myself in the unseen realms. And the conversation in the unseen realms is, why is this happening? What have you done to allow this to happen? What have you done to facilitate this happening? Basically, this is showing you and what you've projected onto him. And as I listened to myself, as I'm talking to him, as I listened to myself have this conversation, I realized that I was projecting all these things that I had carried from my childhood and things that I had seen in my mom and my dad's relationship. I had projected all of that stuff on him. All he did was provide the catalyst to bring that out of me. And as I started to endeavor to explore that, that's when things really started to shift for me. I ended up joining the Inner Sanctum, although I put it off for, I don't know how many times they tried to get me to make that leap. I watch Karen's show all the time, but I never even considered joining the group until they started to push a little bit. And I rejected it like at least 3 times. And I finally made the decision in that January, February timeframe of 2020 to join. And it was one of the best decisions I made. It was like when I paid that money and I had that initial session with Karen, my guides, I could hear and feel them saying, yes, we finally got over the hump. It was almost like as if I've lived so many lifetimes and I've never gotten over the hump. But this time I got over the hump. I made the choice and I decided to move forward. And so we had that initial chat. And she told me a lot of things that resonated, that I needed to hear. I needed to hear that I was wearing, one thing I'll never forget you saying, Karen, is that I was wearing my mother's beliefs I was wearing them like a sweater and I had to take them off. And that resonated so much with me that when I did that, I felt this lifting. I felt this lifting, like I had finally started to release or unravel and get down to the essence of what was truly me. And so joined the group, went down that road, had that discussion, finally had the discussion with my husband because I had never even shared with him the woo-woo side of me. He knew nothing at all. And I remember sitting thinking to myself, if I tell him this, he's gonna leave. He's gonna choose to leave. And that was one of my biggest fears for never sharing that side of myself, is that he would choose to leave because it was just too much for him. It was too weird for him. He's never been really into church and spiritual things and any of that. And so I decided that I was worth it, that I had to do it for me, that I had to make the choice for myself, no matter the cost. I was willing to give up whatever it took for me to live authentically as me. It was time for me to be me. And so I sat down and I told him everything. I gave him everything. I didn't hold anything back. I think I started from like the time I was 3-year-old. No, I started before that. I started with my very earliest memory and I told him everything, every weird woo-woo thing, everything that I've ever seen, heard, all the crazy stuff that I've ever experienced. I told him, and he took a big deep breath and he said, okay. He said, well, we'll move forward together. We'll do it together. We'll figure it out, is what he said. And I thought to myself, yeah, right, until the real stuff, the real stuff starts happening. But he has been my biggest support. He's been my biggest supporter. And it's funny because he doesn't necessarily understand everything that happens, but because of the love that he has, that's enough for him to trust it. That's enough. That's been enough for him to trust it. And throughout this process, he's shown me, and I thought about this after I moved to Florida, because I moved to Florida has been a big step in that direction and me becoming who I'm here to be. But I realized that he's shown me love. He's given me that reflection of what love is here to be. Love is unconditional. It doesn't judge. It doesn't bail when things get hard. He's always been the steady constant in my space. No matter what it is I bring to him, he's always the steady rock who's present, always. Even though he doesn't understand it at all, he's opened to it as I've embraced being myself. So I tell everybody, the best thing that you can do for this world is to bring your authenticity, to live your authentic truth, because in so doing, you create the safety for the people around you to do the same. You start to resonate in a different way, and it starts to bring out things in people that they didn't even know was present, but it creates an ability for them to be open to new things, to new perspectives, and it broadens even them as you resonate in a higher way. So that kind of brings us forward. I left my job in January of 2022. I think that was 2020. Yeah. So I left my job this past January. I left my corporate job because it was no longer a fit. I've known it wasn't a fit for quite a while, but last year I kind of felt it coming on. And this year I decided to pull the trigger because, again, it was one of those instances where I could not any longer deny who I am. I couldn't deny myself anymore. And so for me, and I know this is not applicable for everybody because some people stick it out in the corporate realm, but for me, it was the best decision that I made. It was like ripping the Band-Aid. and I had to rip the Band-Aid to go ahead and heal. And what happened is, as I ripped that Band-Aid, I was like, in January, I'm like, shit, what did I do? Like, what am I supposed to do now? Like, who am I now? I went through all of this. And it was like I found myself in a darkness in January. And I told somebody, I said, I'm standing here in this dark place, and the only thing that I can see is my feet. Is my feet. That's all I can see. That's as big as my radius is. And my guidance would say, as you trust, the radius will get bigger and bigger, and you'll be able to see more and more. And sure enough, that's what started to happen. And so I really just, I stopped, and part of me wanted to go back to that comfort zone, but I knew it was in me to move forward in this way. And so I literally just trusted the guidance. I followed the guidance. And so as I did, I started to create these light language videos. Now, in my mind, on the front end of this, I'm creating light language videos because I'm helping the collective, right? This is what I believe at the time. And I think Michael Tamura speaks to this so eloquently, because he says it's not your job to be here to fix other people. It's your job here to live your authenticity, to be who you are. Everybody has their own team and their own guidance, and it's not your job to fix anyone. That's on the back end. But on the front end, I went in thinking, I'm here to shine my light, this spiritual ego thing. I'm here to shine my light and allow that to fix everybody. Well, what happened in actuality is I'm creating these light language videos. And what I'm actually doing now, I can see this, is I'm activating myself. I'm creating these light language videos, and I'm listening to them like 5 and 6 times to make sure they're right before I upload them to YouTube. And every time I listen to my own voice, I am lifted and activated in a way that I really cannot describe to you in words. But it's happening. And what's happening over time as I've created these different light language series, is that I'm like hyper speeding my evolution, is what I really feel like has happened. I hyper sped up my evolution, and things just started to come. And if you have even looked at some of my videos, they've gone from like low grade videos to like cinematic, epic videos now that's coming out. And I don't even know where they come from sometimes. I don't even start with a concept a lot of times. I kind of just sit down at this point now and just allow what comes to be what comes. But in the beginning, I would plan out, okay, I got to speak to this topic. I got to speak to this topic so everybody can get it in a succinct and coherent way. And yeah. And so my husband and I had some talks. We were living at the time in Minnesota. And he said, you might have to go back and find something to do to bring in some income, because I mean, I was working in the software industry, and you get paid, and so you make a nice chunk of change in the software industry. And when I left, they kind of put a dent in what we were bringing in together. And so he was like, you might have to find something to do to bring something in, because the work that I was doing wasn't bringing in enough, of course, in the beginning. And so I told him, I said, okay, I'll figure that out. And so I started doing some recruiting, which put me kind of back. It's almost like I was straddling the fence, like not fully into this space that I was supposed to be in, but still kind of hanging on to that aspect of me that I was. So I wasn't really doing software development, but I was recruiting for software engineers. I'm still in the tech space to a certain degree. And what I realized about 3-4 months in is that, okay, you said you were going to rip the Band-Aid. You got to go ahead and rip the Band-Aid off. You got to let that go. because that's no longer who you are. And it's holding you back. It's holding you away from what you are walking, what you are desiring to walk into. And so I told him, I said, we are at a space where we can make some changes. We can make some changes that we can sustain, that can put us in a position to thrive rather than struggle trying to make ends meet. We can make some changes. And we decided that we would make a move from where we were. And I told him, I said, if we're going to make a move, why don't we move somewhere where we really want to be? Somewhere that's beautiful. Let's pick somewhere that's beautiful, that you can support us, handle the majority of what needs to be taken care of, and I can get up and going. I'll have space to get up and going. And so when we decided to make that move, started looking around for beautiful places, because I'm so drawn to nature and the aesthetic, that we discovered that we could live in Florida and be right near the beach. Like, all these things started to fall into place. It's kind of mind blowing when we both sit down to think about it, because it's something we never thought we would be able to do. Like, you think you retire and then you go live in one of these beautiful places and you have like immediate access to the beach and all these different things that you can have once you retire. But if you do it in the right way, following the guidance that you are led, it's kind of magical and mind-blowing, the way the pieces have fallen into place for us. And so now we are here. I was targeting one city in Florida, but we ended up in another city in Florida, which works out well because I was tired of the metropolitan scene. I wanted a slower pace of life where I can get out in nature and just be. My kids can get out, ride their bikes in the street and not have to worry about a million cars coming by. Just slower pace of life. And what we found is the perfect spot for us. And I'm actually like 2 miles from the beach, 2 miles from the ocean front is where I stay. And like just catty corner to my neighborhood is a nature preserve. So it's like all these pieces that feed and fuel me are present in this space. And this is kind of where we are. It took a lot of trusting to get to this place, but as I've done that, I'm like in sync with my guidance. It's like my guidance is like near to breathing. It's really what it's become. And so my journey is sort of what I guide people into. It's like I've had to live these things and embrace myself and not have a concern for the opinion of others, living and doing things in my own way, that I've been able to walk into this space. I know when I first started channeling, one of the things that was kind of my motivation was I was so big on Esther Hicks and watching Esther Hicks. And I think I was so enamored with her and people who channel like her that I thought that was the way that it had to be done. And over this past year, what I've realized is there's a calling for each of us to bring our uniqueness to the table, because our uniqueness is what speaks to a lot of different people in a lot of different ways. So it's almost like ice cream where you have a bunch of different flavors. Everybody's not here to do it in the same exact way. And I found that when I was channeling and using that as my template for what had to be, I was on one level. When I had a friend who asked me what I wanted this to become. And I said, I've never given thought to what I ultimately wanted to become, because I've always felt like it had to become this thing that I've always seen. It had to become in the way that I've always seen it. But I've never really sat down and given it thought of what me and my team and my guidance, the desire for this expression that comes through Angela to become. But when I did, I realized that that was not me. That was Esther's way. And it worked great for Esther. And she was able to reach a lot of people. She is able to reach a lot of people in her way. But me holding myself to her standard places a limit on what I might allow this to become. And so I had to let that go. And when I did, things just started to come. I started to blossom. It was like, boom, an explosion of me coming into an expression that I can't really put a container around it, because things that come are always so different. Like one video might not be the same as another video. When I'm working with people who I interact with, it's never the same. The expression is always different. So I've released the bounds on what it needs to be, how it needs to be expressed. I just show up and allow it to be what it is. When Karen asked me to do this chat, initially, and sometimes I still have this come in where I have that initial angst, like, how am I going to approach this, or how am I going to do this? And my guides are always like, you've lived it, you are living it, so you just show up and allow us to serve at guidance, and you just follow the guidance. You just show up. There's no need to prepare anything. And so I haven't prepared anything for this. I haven't prepared anything for this discussion. It's like, just show up and do what you do. Speak. Let's just have a chat. And I don't typically get into presentation style, which is what this seems to have turned into, kind of presentation style. But I normally love the conversation and the dialogue, because I feel like it's so nice to go back and forth, because it turns into a more co-creative experience, and you bring out something that's applicable for everybody present. So yeah, this is kind of where I am. My husband is now he's my biggest fan, and I tell you, he is, and he still doesn't understand everything, all the pieces, but he's willing to sit and listen with us in a state of openness. And now the crystals and all the things that I have and the way that I move, it's no longer all weird for him, because I do move when I channel, and even when there's a presence in the space, I feel that in my body, and my body is literally moved. This was one of the things that kind of came on after I owned it. When I fully owned it, it started to come out. And so if you see me starting to move, my hands will move, my body will move, everything will start to move. It's just me feeling the energy in the space, moving the energy in the space. Yeah.
Oh, so beautiful. I was going to ask you about the movement, but you just started talking about it. But how did the kids deal with new mum and the move? Like, did they happily come for the ride?
So my children, I've never shielded my children. I've never shielded them. I've always spoken to them frankly, and I've always made it a point to believe them if they tell me anything, because I know what it is to be a child and express what you are feeling, sensing, seeing, hearing, all those things, and not be believed. And so I've always made it a point of sitting with them and having open discussions with them. From the time they came into the world, we would always have discussions before I felt like they could understand me, because I wasn't even at that space at that point when I had at least my first. I would always still speak to them and make sure that they felt heard and seen, but I never shielded them from the me that is, and the me that has become. It's just become more openly discussed, I guess, more openly discussed in front of Papa. That's okay. They call my husband Papa. It's more openly discussed in front of him. So it's brought us all together in that space, because now they don't have an issue with it at all. And what's funny is they don't have an issue speaking about the quote unquote woo-woo stuff with their friends. They don't have an issue being lights in spaces with their friends. Like with us moving here to Florida, both of them have finally started school. And my son went to school, and I was all concerned, moving from one type of neighborhood to a different, like a beachy type of neighborhood where you have so many different diverse people. The schools are so diverse. I was just concerned with them coming from one state, one place to another place, and adapting and making friends and things like that. And my son came home and he said, yeah, my friend so-and-so said this, and my friend so-and-so said that. And what it told me was that he's not having any issue making friends. He says his friends are more taken with him because he's such a nice guy. They said one friend told him, how can you be so nice? Like, how can you be this nice? And he said, well, I'm just a nice guy and it's okay to be nice. And what it told me is that he's serving as a light within his school, showing the kids around himself that it's okay to be nice. You don't always have to walk around guarded. You don't have to always walk around thinking everybody is a threat. That it's okay to be genuinely loving and nice. And my daughter started high school here, and she had a similar experience. She said there's a lot of negativity around her sometimes, and there's a lot of animosity, or what's the word do I want to use? Tension, sometimes between students and teachers. And what she said is, it's almost like she's here to be a light. And what she found is people being drawn to her. Like, she's not even doing anything. She's not even going out of her way to interact with the kids, because she had just gotten there, like very first day. She's like, everybody wanted to help me. She's like, I found it was so amazing because everybody wanted to help me get from this class to this class. And there were even some senior girls, because of the school that we were in, she was well ahead. So what's happened is she's been elevated in a lot of her classes, to the point where she's, rather than being in freshman level classes, she's in classes with a lot of upperclassmen. And she thought that would be an intimidating thing, to be in classes with a lot of upperclassmen. But what she's found is they've taken her in and wanting to guide her to the next space. And I told her, I said, that's really a product of the essence and the vibration that you carry. You are drawing out in the people around you love, assistance, guidance, support, what you would need to get from A to B. So you don't have to worry about school. And this is what I've told her, because she'll sometimes worry. Like, you don't have to worry when you exude a certain vibe, when you hold a certain vibration. The universe is here to guide you, to provide everything that you need in the way that you need it most. All you have to do is let go and not worry. Stay in the heart. Stay in the heart. Stay in the heart space. Just breathe in the heart. Even when you feel a little angst or a little nervousness, just sit and breathe and stay in the heart. And you don't have anything to worry about. The universe will send to you what you need, the guidance that you need, the support that you need. And she was so surprised at the end of the day that she had such a seamlessly unchallenging day, making it through a new school, meeting people, not being alone, not being the odd one out because she's new, but everybody is drawn to her. It's been the same with both of them. So yeah, having a moment.
Oh my God, it's so beautiful to hear, honestly. Oh, so beautiful to hear.
Yeah.
I have this memory of us talking about all sorts of galactic stuff in the Inner Sanctum, and I just thought that you were totally on board with it all. And then one day you said to me,
Hey, Shelly, I'm going to need you to mute your mic, all right?
oh, thanks, Di. Yeah, thank you. And then you had said to me, I don't know how I feel about this galactic stuff. And I said to you, really?
Please mute your mic.
Yeah.
Please mute your mic. Ain't nobody want to hear you. Ain't nobody want to hear your ass.
Who's saying that? Let me have a look. Let me see if I can mute people. Who's unmuted? Everyone looks muted to me. Samantha, there you go. Yeah, I think everyone's muted.
Guys, be respectful.
Thank you. All right, so where were we? And then anyway, so then you said, I don't know if I know about all this galactic stuff. And then you started connecting. And I want to get into some of your channeling, but I had this sort of epiphany.
Bro, why you mute me, bro?
Okay. All right, there we are. So I had this sort of epiphany watching your story, because a lot of people are a bit freaked out to reach out to galactic energies and consciousness, thinking that they might connect to some nefarious ones or pesky ones or things, you know, there's all this fear around who can attach to them and control them. Who's that talking? Sorry. All right. And what I've noticed is that to talk to any consciousness throughout the universe, we always have to go through the portal of the higher self. And your story is one where, you know, you really got connected to that portal of your higher self, connecting to your guides that you call oneness, and really establishing that relationship with love. And then once you had that establishment with love, then you could, you know, reach out and talk to anyone, talk to any consciousness.
Hey, Sheila, I'm gonna need you to mute your mic, guy.
What is that?
I don't know. I'm going to have to do a bit of, who's saying that? All right, I'm just going to pause the recording for a minute and just. So, yeah, so back to what we were talking about. A lot of people might want to ask.
Angela, what you saying in chat?
Shut up, Josh. I swear I'm trying to learn.
How is somebody using my credentials?
Using your credentials on recording. All right, would you like to sort of share with people like who, you know, how they identified themselves to you, who your guides are and what you call them and how they feel to you?
So my guidance, I'll tell you, when they first started to come in, they would give me names, and you know, everybody grows up in different ways, different environments, and based on some names, it would create a bit of fear in myself. Some of the names would, because I wasn't necessarily familiar with that path. I grew up in a Baptist church where we went to church every Sunday. So hearing some of the names, it would kind of freak me out a little bit. And so I told them, I said, you know, I'd rather feel into it. I don't need a name. Allow me to feel into it. And as I feel into it, let's go with that. I don't need a name. I'll just call it, we can just call it one collective name. And that's how oneness came about, because I didn't really need that. And then I got to a point where I could just feel it in my body, and it just kind of came that way. I allowed myself to feel into the different energies that would come. Now, some would drop names. If I was doing an automatic writing, the names would come sometimes that way. But typically, if I was feeling into an energy, I wouldn't need to ask for a name. I could just feel into it from that heart space, and then I would know. But I'll tell you, in the beginning, I wasn't into the galactic space at all, because I grew up in the Baptist church, and it was either God or angels, and that was it. And if you were outside of that, you were in a realm that I didn't want to deal with, right? Because you were in the negative space. But they say as a student is ready, the teacher appears. And so I never went out searching for anybody or anything other. People started to be placed in my path, divinely placed in my path. And one friend who was placed in my path was Sage Oneness. And she came to me and initiated an activation. And that activation, after the activation I had with her, I started to write, draw, and speak the light language. Well, write and draw the light language. And after that activation, it's like I leveled up, so to speak, a little bit. And then another friend was placed in my path who was so much more galactic, so much more in the galactic space. And when I met her, it was like we had known each other for years, lifetimes. And I know we've known each other probably many, many lifetimes. It's just that we've reconnected in this incarnation. And she was extremely galactic, and just speaking to her it was like I would have a physical conversation with her, but in the corner of my room, we're having another chat, an unseen chat. It's like she was that activating for me, where I could feel the different frequencies, or I'm speaking to her on multiple different levels, and spending time with her, getting to know her, and just developing our relationship. Just being in her presence was so activating for me. Like, we would be on the phone and speak really about nothing, but I'm feeling this activation. And I knew I was on some level being activated, because after we would talk, it was like I would go through this period of integration where I'm opening up and things are just starting to just explode in my awareness all of a sudden. Like, just recently, I'll say that she would always share stories with me. And this is why I'm so into sharing stories, because I don't believe anymore that people learn best by being taught in a manual, logical, you do this, do this, do this, do this. People connect with stories, and you're able to evolve by connecting from the heart with a story, because it's almost like you can see yourself. You can see yourself in that story and allow it to play with you in that story. It's like it bypasses your logic on some level, and you get more than you ever expected that you could possibly get just by listening to a simple story. And I know this plays and is so valid, because she left my awareness for quite a while. So she took a break. Let's say I'm going off grid. I'm going to take a break from everything social, right? Just take a break. During her break was when all these different nuggets, I realized that she had dropped. Like, it was almost like she planted these little seeds within me that began to flower and blossom. And then this is when my evolution kind of really skyrocketed, when she left my space. And it was like I was left to my own devices almost. And I just started to embrace me and figure things out. And all these seeds that she's magically planted have started to come to light. And I'm starting to understand these stories that she might have talked about that at the time bypassed me way up here. It's like, oh my God, now I'm starting to understand all these things that I did not get. Like, I heard them, but I didn't really resonate with. It's like she left my space, and then everything just started to become clear. Everything just started to become clear. And it was what I needed, I guess, and integrated everything that I had heard, but everything that she had spoken of that at the time bypassed me has come to light. And it's moved me to some other level completely. Yeah.
Ah, beautiful. Shall we bring through the guides? Do you want to do some channeling? You can either do movement channeling, light language channeling, you can talk, and then we'll do some Q&A after that. How's that sound?
Yeah. So we would rather have the group ask questions to facilitate a question, like a question and answer, a dialogue. Let's go with a dialogue feel. Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Has anyone got any questions? There's no questions in the chat as yet, but because, as Angela was saying, sometimes her channeling is just movement, and you've got quite a few videos on your YouTube of you just moving, which I just find so sublime. I really do. It's kind of, yeah, just that movement is gorgeous. So Don says here, this is more of a personal question rather than asking the guides. How long did it take for your husband to come around?
It was kind of it was in the moment. Like when he said we'll figure it out, he meant it. We'll figure it out. My very first video is a video of me channeling for him, like outdoors channeling for him. And that was my first time ever doing that for him. And he had a chance to ask some questions and sit with it and kind of take it all in. And again, it's like one of those things where over time he had to resonate with it. So I would say 2020 to now is kind of where the duration is. Yeah, that's love. And it took me a long time to realize that is love. It's totally unconditional. It's not like I'm going to run for the hills when it gets weird, when I don't understand it. It's like I'm going to stand here and I'm going to allow myself to figure out something I don't know. I'm going to allow myself to stand here and be with this person that I've chosen to be. Can I make a clone?
Do you think your husband could clone himself about 1 million times? Absolutely. I know. Beautiful. Because I've, having facilitated groups for years, there was something that when I was running the Academy of Light, I used to hear all the time. Predominantly the women would have an awakening and their husbands would think that they were completely crazy and try to ignore it, or they didn't come for the ride. And yeah, about 25 years ago, that was the big complaint from everybody. My husband
let's speak on that. Let's put a pin there and speak on that, because that was one of my fears for coming out and just being out, is that everybody that I had listened to had told the same story or a similar story, that they came out, the spouse couldn't take it, and they ended up with a divorce. Now, my childhood, I've been through that. Like I've experienced my parents divorcing, and it seemed like everybody in my family has been divorced at least once. And I know as a child who's experienced that, what it is to feel that. And I have not ever wanted to inflict that on my children, ever. So it was the friend who came into my life. She was the one who helped me to see how life reflects. And this is where my biggest shift came in, because I realized it's never about the other person. It's always about you. The other person is but showing you. So if you choose to run or leave that person, okay, but you still taking you with you. And you, at some point, you still have to deal with that, whatever is in resonance with what you don't want to see. You at some point still have to deal with that. And so we had a real heart to heart, and I was crying like crocodile tears on the phone, because she says that, he's just showing you, he's just mirroring you. As you shift, as you change, he will change also. And I'm like, that sounds buku crazy. Like, how can I bring myself to believe that? That sounds absolutely insane. But something in me knew that to be true, because it cannot be otherwise, right? Yeah. And so I started to do the work. I started to do the work. And as I started to address what in me was in resonance with what I didn't want to see, I found a lot of places where I wasn't loving myself, places where I was seeing myself as less than worthy. And I had to do all that inner work. But as I've done all of that inner work, well, my projection of him has changed. My perception of him has changed. And it's not like he did anything miraculous. It's just me correcting my self-projection, my projection of life, because we're all projecting our lives and they play out in a way that's necessary to bring us into greater awareness of self. Right. And so as I've done that work, well, I could say he has changed, but really he hasn't changed. It's been me that's done the changing. And by way of me changing, he has changed. Right. That's how that plays out. So I don't think it's necessary in all cases, at least it has not been the case in my reality, that he needed to leave or I needed to leave him. Every time something comes up that serves as a trigger, it's an indication of work where I need to do a little bit of work on me, where I need to see things a little bit differently, where I may need to release some limiting beliefs or reframe some limiting beliefs. Because as I do that work, then life shifts, life changes. A lot of us have that victim mentality ingrained, but realistically, there are no victims. There are no victims. On some level, you've gone into agreement with everything that you witness. And it's not until you choose to see those things differently that you allow it to change. But it's all the self. It's all product of the self, because life is a self projection. We are the deliberate creators, as you would always say. We are the deliberate creators of our own experience, projecting our own reality. So it's up to us to do that inner work to change what we witness outside of us. There's so many people who fight over different things that they witness outside in society, but even on the societal level, that is showing you. That is showing you. It's an opportunity to see that and ask, what are you trying to show me about me? And as you do that work, you'll find that the world shifts. This is how people can see the world in such different ways. People can have such different life experiences because one person has chosen to see the external world as happening to them, right? But really, the world is not happening to you as much as you are projecting it by virtue of who you are and what you've chosen to believe and adopt about yourself. So it's paramount to do that inner work, because if you don't do the inner work, the outside is not going to change. It's going to always remain the same. And so that's where I am. And it's funny because there was an old me who would always go to him and say, be upset, you're not doing this right. And because you're not doing this right, I can't be happy. And my happiness was so contingent upon him doing these things in exactly the way that I thought he should be doing them. And what's happened over me evolving is that I've released the reins, because I've realized that it's not my job to fix anybody outside of me. It's not my job to fix anyone outside of me. It's my job to do the work on myself so that the outside is projected differently in a way that delights and excites me, because I can do that. That's how powerful I am. If I see something I don't like, I ask myself, what in me is in resonance with that? What are you attempting to show me? Work that thing out, and I don't have to witness that thing again in the same way. It won't come up for me again in the same way. It may come again in a different way, but it won't come up again in that same way. It's like if you break a bone in your arm, and when it heals, it's going to heal stronger than it was before, such that it never breaks in the same spot ever again. It may get close, but it's not going to experience the exact same break in the exact same spot ever again, because it's built up stronger. It knows it's different. It's stronger than it was before. So it's the same way with life. As we work out reframe the limiting beliefs, let go of the limiting beliefs, then we allow ourselves to be more authentically who we are, basically. Yeah.
So beautifully said, honestly.
Yeah.
So beautifully said. I think I remember Oprah having Gary Zukaroff on the Oprah show. He's the author of Seed of the Soul. And he was talking about soulmate relationships, and everyone, you know, in the conscious community, twin flames, soulmates, we're all out there looking for the love of your life. Gary said, I don't know, about 25, 30 years ago, Gary said, a soulmate is someone who's going to press all your buttons.
That's exactly right. I
Because
believe
a
that.
soulmate is somebody that's going to show you the buttons you've got. And just like you said, you know, you get upset not because of what someone's doing, because of what you believe about yourself. Like that's your
Right.
button. Yeah. So a soulmate, someone that's going to be like, let me just press all those buttons for you.
Yeah, I said to myself, I say, he is a perfect person for me. He was the perfect person for me because he's lived in such a way that it's helped me come out of myself because I've allowed it. I've gotten over that you're doing this to me or you're not doing this right, that blaming type of thing, and allowed myself to see it for what it is. So he's serving up all the things that are showing me, and now I can take those into myself and work on me. Now, on the flip side of this, what's happened is I'm no longer the catalyst that's making him do. I'm no longer the motivation that's fueling him to do certain things in a certain way. So now that's created the space for him to find his own inspiration, his own ability to be inspired, to move and select things that are pleasing to him, not just because it's something that will be pleasing for me, because it's something that genuinely works and fuels who he is as a person, as a man. Because when we were living in the other way, it was like I was the catalyst behind him, pushing, moving. It was like I'm the external motivation. And life change doesn't come through external motivation. It has to be internally inspired and accepted. And this is kind of the space that he now has so that he can grow as well. It's like one fuels the other. And I was like, man, I wish I had known this like 20 years back, because I would approach this thing a whole lot differently than I did at the time. But divine timing, all of that has been necessary for me to come into the space where I am now, because now I know. And now I know that life doesn't have to be so hard. I feel like we make life so difficult, but this life game, because it's a game, really, right? This life game doesn't have to be so difficult. It can be extremely easy when you know who and what you are. That's where it starts. Who and what you are. You're more than the physical. You are a soul having a human experience. That's number one. And number two is you, yeah, you are creating your own experience by virtue of the beliefs you choose to attach to, right? So it's like you are a divine light, and you are this light that's shining through, but you got this thing up, these beliefs that are hindering your projection into this reality. And it's like, as you go through and you remove those beliefs, then the full essence of you is able to shine through. But as long as you hold those beliefs, then you prevent the full essence of you from being projected into this space. So the work is simply to assess your beliefs, understand what's serving you, what's not, and reframe or release, when you can, those beliefs that are not serving you. But it takes courage, because those beliefs are going to challenge the ego's perspective of self. It's up to you to look at those beliefs, but it's so easy. is so easy to do if you are willing to sit with it when you are in your fear or choosing to operate in that illusory state of fear. It's not turning from or running from that fear, but sitting with that fear or even that pain. So I've had these talks with my daughter from time to time, and in moments, for instance, where she's experiencing pain. Nobody likes pain, but pain is it's an alert. It's a message from your body trying to get your attention. So it's not to your advantage to, what's the word, numb the pain. It's not to your advantage to numb the pain or to attempt to run from the pain, but it's to your advantage to sit with, look dead in the eye, the pain, breathe into it. And so this is how I guide my daughter from time to time. Let's say if she's experiencing some pain, I always tell her to sit with it and take a deep breath and envision it right in front of you. And you are looking it dead in the eye and you want to breathe into it. Allow yourself to breathe into it. It's not until you allow yourself to face it and breathe into it that we can address what it really is. And so she's learned, it's like almost like she intuitively knew when I explained this to her, to look at and breathe into the pain. And as I move the energy, I can feel this tentacle. It's almost like a tentacle reaching through me. It's like you have DNA or ancestral things that attach from mom to kid, mom to child from time to time. But it was like when she breathed into it, then I could help her release and remove this thing that's coming through me that's reaching down into her. But for me, it feels like tentacles that I'm having to pull away, energetically pull away. But sitting with that pain essentially is the point. Sitting with your pain, sitting with your fear, having the courage to face it and releasing that need to preserve, to preserve the ego's identity of self. Yeah, so you can get to the true essence of self. Yeah.
Oh, so beautiful. Can just bask in everything you're saying. You're saying. Do you want to do a little bit of channeling, and I'll ask the guides some questions, just to
Sure.
maybe
Okay.
some global questions, and then I'll turn the recording off and we can just open up for personal questions. How do you feel about that?
Let's go for that.
All right. Hello, Oneness. Thank you for being with us.
Andu shadura aisinde kai daswa rakua desia rua isa. Yes, our presence is, we are happy to be here in this time. Bearoiko asinde kasuara asui a dearunde isiodoro asire oa desuma oeta ishandu kuara oa serioto pi asure esioa asandu guerra usua deara uwe para usheta u rasetukua reatukunde a tesorua de a ferrotukua desandua base. Berrito gua, shedra asedu, ba serendo ushe, desandu gua, ratu, da anse, aso, ratua, sha. Berrendo suko ai sitreko sokai, retu asandu she, ferrute asarute, farunde, che shotoka isandua, ratua, she, ferrota kai. Dasandu she ase dasware tu guapa. They desire to clear the space before we begin.
Okay.
Yes. Yes, Feruda. Berudo kai sotrakan sudua. De cierro. What has been shared is beragua, is beragua, desodogua, desa. Yes, dosondaga reado. Sheroda, berrendo shodarai. Sheriotu useriotu kai soda, berreotu kusandakai sodoa. Seriotu kusandagia doa. Beroda. They desire to bypass the logic and speak to the essence of those present, which is why they won't allow me to translate in the moment. Pero kotosha riatu she ferunde asowa sheriotu usande kai disarute feriotu usande u fare shire u saranu su reta berreondo guata ishe ratua shodu a seriotu asande kai soriatu she sedu berreotu sanduri asua retu shandua seriotu gonda sho desandu retu seriandu aite wariotu kua desandua sharute presunde kai retua prase tushe. Yes, yarotaka, basua, asua, that's all. Yeah, you remarkai, sotarai, desiorotoko, paratu, desutakai, desu, prate. Ba you tere matsuri tokoa, descendrakai, sotua, ratu, shandu se. Berioto sona, ase, yesa, diaso. You may ask your questions, Karen. Whew.
Oh, what I want to say. Oh, you know where I'm transported to at the moment? I'm a bit obsessed with Avatar. The new Avatar movie is coming out. And I feel like I'm on a planet like Avatar, you know, like with those beings that are so, you know, earth-centered and so sky-centered, like so, yeah, multidimensional. Yeah, multidimensional beings. Oh, questions. So let's talk about the transmission of the light language sound and the movement. What effect does it have on those who witness it and hear it?
Waso metu berioto. It bypasses the logic. It creates a harmonic resonance with the environment around and allows the frequency which we transmit, which is love, to be seen, to be felt without restriction, without the encumbrance of the mind, preventing receipt. It speaks to the very core, the very essence of the being itself, enlivening the DNA, the essence of the self. Whew.
Thank you. So it's like receiving light codes through sound, movement, and what we're witnessing. Would that be fair? Mm.
The codes are but essence. The codes are but energy. It's allowing yourself to receive on an energetic level without the encumbrance of the mind, creating a buffer or a filter on the self. It's allowing yourself to feel the essence of that which lies around you, that which animates, permeates, and enfolds your very beingness. It's allowing yourself to be in receipt of all that is without hindrance, without restriction.
Thank you. And can anyone access this frequency of oneness that is communicating through Angela? And if so, how?
This frequency is but love. Allowing yourself, granting yourself permission to remember the truth that you are. You are love in essence. On some level, there is a holding of the self away from the remembrance of this truth. All have access. You need but remember.
Oh, that one hit me. That was beautiful. I don't think I have any questions. Maybe you could speak to the energies coming forth in 2023. Is there anything you'd like to share with us?
There is a transition in place. There's a transition taking place. Yes. Allowing yourself to feel and resonate with that which is coming forth, for it is prompting, catalyzing your change for those who have chosen, for not all have chosen. Those who are ready to shift, to move into a space of allowing love to be the foundation upon which you build, then there are energies coming into this plane of being that will assist in facilitating this change. Where there is a desire for love, love is present. You have only to receive and allow.
Thank you. I think we might finish the recording there for the questions for oneness now, and I'll stop the recording and then I'll open it up to the group if they want to ask. We'll spend another 10-15 minutes just if you want to ask any personal questions. But I want to say thank you to Angela and Oneness for being with us today.
Yes, arunda sakai sotua paratua desandua desha. It's a pleasure to be present with you at this time. Thank you. Ratua desa.